What's up guys, Coop here, and today we're going to be looking at attribute points. So I made a video about this a long time ago. I mean, it's only been like 3 weeks, but still, it's like a long time ago in the sense that there's been multiple different patches and updates to attributes that are completely changed the way that the game works. So that video is very outdated, and I know I got a lot of complaints about it. People being like, you need to update that video, this video's, BS, and I get a lot of dislikes on it, and a lot of angry messages, and I'm with you. I understand. I am here today to tell you guys what actually the attributes do as of this moment, the updated version of it. So let us actually dive in and see what the new attributes do for you guys. So the first one is Strength. Strength increases the damage of your strength-based weapons and skills and allows you to lift and carry heavier items. So, when you do the boat thing, you might notice how there's all these different barrels and you can't pick them up because you don't have the strength to pick them up or open them. That is due to strength. It also increases the amount that you can carry in your inventory, which doesn't seem like that much, but keep in mind you have all these different things that you can craft with, and you're going to want to keep all these, like especially your severed heads and whatnot. So it's nice to keep all these different things around. And as you can see, Galfor, he's carrying a crap ton, and he can carry up to 170. However, Wits and Fang can only carry 100, and the Red Prince can carry 130. And just the different things. Now keep in mind this is based off of class. This is not their actual stats. By no means does the Red Prince always carry 130. So just keep that in mind. Next thing is Finesse, which is kind of sad tale to see. It used to have dodge, but now it no longer does that. It now just does damage based off of weapons and skills, which you might be saying, man, that kind of sucks. But keep in mind that a finesse-based weapon like daggers are finesse-based weapons, so they scale with that, and they have that great little thing called backstab, which always pretty much crits. So you're constantly always critting, so it's a little bit more powerful. The only reason that they nerfed finesse was because rogue-based characters were kind of overpowered. They were just like the go-to. You could do a Sybil with daggers and just constantly crit people, so you can do up to 4 attacks with critting. And it was just insane. It was insane the amount of stuff. And then you had the dodge on top of that. So they got rid of that and they just made it with it where it just does more weapon damage and skill damage. So it scales with different things like the Scoundrel, which gets a bonus from Finesse. Next thing is Intelligence, which basically increases intelligent-based weapons and skills. You're starting to see a theme here. So this helps out with certain spells, like for example, the Necromancer. When I did this build, she does a lot of physical-based damage, so it's important that I give her a little bit of intelligence to scale up that physical-based damage and get nice little heals on her. So I wanted to increase the healing on this, so depending on the damage, I increased it. So I gave her a crap ton of intelligence, which also boosted up her spell power. So nice spell all together to have, and this typically goes with wands and things of that nature. Wands and staves, like this one. Now keep in mind with strength, finesse, and intelligence and constitution, certain weapons do require you to have a certain threshold to wear them. For example, this requires 11 strength for me to actually wear, whereas things like the staff require me to have 10 intelligence to have. Now, as you go throughout the game, through Act 2, Act 3, you start to notice that things require a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. So it's important that you keep your stats in line. You keep a character who's really good at something and one thing. So, for example, Galfor, he is my powerhouse strength guy, so he's going to be my go-to guy. I might later on put a point into necromancy, but right now he is all about strength and constitution. It's a nice balance overall. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is Constitution. Constitution just increases your vitality, which is basically life. It also is what is required to wear shields. So for example, this one requires 10 Constitution. Obviously later on that will be scaling up and whatnot, but it's very nice to have overall because it gives you more life, which is what keeps you alive. I don't know if you noticed, but what's really nice about this is you are able to wear shields, which gives you magical armor and physical armor. Sometimes they only give you physical, sometimes they give you slight more magical than physical, but you can always depend on them giving you physical armor and that awesome shields up perk, which allows you to do the following, which is right here. It gives you physical armor and magical armor and restores it. So it's really nice to just have that overall, so your character's getting hit, you just click it, boom, you got nice little shields up all over again. Now memory. Memory is complicated to talk about and hard to explain, but basically it affects the amount of memory slots which are required to learn skills. More powerful ones, however, cost more memory. So what am I talking about? Sounds pretty much like Greek to you. What are memory slots? So memory slots are sort of the slots of how many spells you can learn. Every 2 levels you get a memory slot. It doesn't show it. It doesn't show an increase at all. I wish that the game actually showed you it, but for every 2 levels you get a memory slot. So as you can see, my character, he has extra 2 memory slots, which I've never gotten to use because I am all warfare and I have not acquired any other spells. So that's how that works. Now what I like to use it on is typically my mage based characters. So for example, this is Louise. She has a necromancer build, which I showed in a previous video, and I really like this build overall, and I wanted to get a infusion for my incarnates, and say like I get another infusion in the future, I want to be able to actually put it on my incarnate. So being able to have all these different variety of things I can do is nice. So let me just put that back on there. And then also you have your innate skills and your skills from items. Those do not change. However, your memory slot allows you to have more spells overall, which is nice to have. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is Wits. Wits is what gives you initiative, so it's what lets you start first. It gives you an increase in crit chance and a ability to detect traps and find hidden treasures. So you don't get to see this much in the game with the detect traps and hidden treasures, but it is very much used. So there's also multiple times where I'll be walking around in the world and there will be a sand patch on the ground and my character will be like, oh, there's something here. And then you use your little shovel, you dig it up, and then you find some treasure and some loot that can give you a great advantage, which could help you up with leveling up overall. So very nice to have. The more important part is the crit chance and the initiative. It's what gives you that setup. So for my character, I gave her 1 in Wits. Now you might be saying, why did you do that? She's a spell-based character. I did it because I wanted her to have more initiative, because I wanted her to help set up with totems and things. It's very important that this character gets the first move. She has a teleportation spell. It's just nice to have ways to teleport people out of the fray, having my sort of setup all set up. Just nice to have in general. Now for my main character of Fane, I have him with a Wits of 15, which increases his crit chance by an exponential amount and gives him initiative. So he's a rogue-based character. He is not at all about trying to be right in the fray. So it's very important that I get him invisible right at the beginning and able to run around and make sure I get in behinds of people. But when I'm not behind a character, I don't want him to be completely useless. So I like having at least a tiny amount of crit chance. So even though he has a backstab perk, which can pretty much always crit, it's nice to have a way of, just in case something happens, he has that potential of critting and having that initiative. So let's actually look at the damage now. Damage is basically the algorithm that they use to determine how much damage you use. So everybody here has vastly different things going on. You might see 16 and 17 on him, 14 to 17 on her, or on him, 9 to 10 on her, 18 to 19 on him. So let's actually look at the algorithm for you real quick. So requires 2 action points to use. Now this could sometimes change over time, doesn't really change that much though. You get stats from your weapon, you get stats from your off weapon. Now when you dual wield, it gives you a 50% deduction on all your attack. Because, I mean, it'd be overpowered if the dual wielding got to attack with both weapons and it hurt like that much, but it still does enough to where it's good. Then you get an additional amount from your combat-based abilities. So for example, I have 3 in dual wielding, which gives me an increase in 15% of my damage. So it gets rid of a little bit from that deduction there. Then I have some from warfare, which increases it by 10%. So that's one of the sort of trees you can go down. That's where I got all my different spells from. And then I also got an increase from strength of my weapon and my other weapon. So since they're both strength-based skills, they got that. Now if I were to switch to a shield, vastly changes my thing. As you can see, I only got 10% there, and I got 35% from that. Completely different, totally different from how the scaling worked before. However, if I were to put that back on, increases the damage exponentially. So you can see a very big difference there. Next, we're going to be looking at this, so I can show you from a dexterity-based character. So he has none in warfare. He is not put into warfare at all, but he has 25 from finesse from both weapons. So the dual wielding thing goes away, and everything that he does with his two weapons is pure damage. Now, as you can see, he has a lower base weapon and a higher base weapon. Even though he has a higher base weapon with that one skill, it still hurts him vastly. So if I were to switch it to this, as you can see, still hurts a decent amount. So it's very important that you look at all your base weapons and you make sure that they're both good, and if you have any penalties, to make sure you get around that. Now we'll look at Luis real quick to look at an intelligence-based one. It's just flatly increased by intelligence because it's just an intelligence-based weapon. Next, we're going to be looking at crit. Shows you what your crit multiplier is. It is how much chance you have to strike a critical attack when using your weapon or casting a spell. It shows you what your crit multiplier is. So when I hit, I do 150% of my damage. Now we'll go to Thane, who's all about this. He has 5 from Wits, 5 from him being a human-based character, and then he has a 170 base crit multiplier. Very nice to have. Has a 10% chance to crit. She has a 6% chance to crit from her Wits. So that's basically how that works. Accuracy. It's your chance to hit the weapon. I have a base of 95. She has a base of 95. 95. 105. And the reason you got that is from this nice little perk called Hot-Headed. So let's actually look at Hot-Headed. While you're at maximum vitality, it gives you a 10% chance of crit chance and 10% to accuracy. So as you can see, there's kind of a common theme. When things affect it, the multiplier shows it. And it's really nice because it shows you how you got that. Next is dodging. So I get dodging from leadership, dual wielding, sturdy, and parry master. So sturdy is a perk from the dwarf. Dual wielding is just 3% overall. Leadership is a perk that Luis has, which is a actual combat based ability, which gives it to everybody. So it gives 4% dodge and 6 resilience to everybody, which is super nice. So, physical armor. Now, physical armor used to be given away with strength. However, that is no longer the case anymore. It's now just given with armor. So make sure you build up that strength to get that physical armor. See what they did there? They did it a little bit differently. So you have to build the strength to get the armor to have the physical armor. So it's just like an extra step along the way, which makes it a little bit different. But as you can see, requires a strength of 11. So if you're running like a default character like Luis, and she was a summoner-based character and you never put a point in the strength ever, you would not be able to wear this gear. So that's what's really nice. Physical damage basically destroys the physical armor slowly over time. However, once it hits 0, you are able to be bleed or knocked down. So for example, I'm trying to think of an ability right now. Here we go. So Mosquito Swarm doesn't do that much damage, but for example, if I were to hit somebody, they would not take any damage whatsoever. However, after their armor is destroyed and I use this ability, they would take actual true damage. Next is Mage Armor, or Magic Armor. Basically, it's the same thing, just with spells, and this allows you to get the status of burning and getting stunned. So if a character, say, use rain and is wet, and you try to use lightning, they would not be getting stunned until you break their magical armor. So very important that you, if you are going to be doing CC based abilities, that you actually destroy their armor first before doing it. Otherwise, your crowd control based ability is completely useless. So for example, I have Petrifying Touch. It does earth damage, and it removes bleeding, burning, and cripple based attacks, but it turns them to stone for 1 turn. However, I cannot use this ability at all if they still have magical armor, so I need somebody to destroy that magical armor before I can use this ability. Next is movement. This is just basically how many movements can you do with 1 action point. So if I were to do a fight, and I would say I'm in the red, so let's just go and attack this guy real quick. So, for example, my action points is I am able to just walk all the way over here. But in general, I would not be allowed to do that, which would kind of suck. So it's nice having that increase of that. So Galfor can only move 5, however this guy can move 6.2, so he can move, just get the hell out of there if you wanted to. Next is initiative. So as you can see, how this works is this character, if we inspect him, has 12. So he is higher than most of my characters. So she has 11, so that's why she's here. Fane has obviously an exponential amount of 15, and the Red Prince and Galfor have 10. So as you can see, this is where combat gets into the fray. So it does it just based on the order of who has the higher wits of who goes first. And then the next one is initiative. Actually, is experience. Experience is just basically how much it takes and requires to actually level. So, for example, if I go over to Fane, and let's just try to kill this guy real quick. And I don't know why I didn't backstab him, but boop. So basically, if we kill this guy real quick, I can show you real quick what XP does. Alright, now that I actually got him down, let's show you real quick how the XP thing works. So now we just go over here, attack, and the XP increases by 200, and the next level 1 goes down. So as you can see, I have a I'm getting damaged by fire, but since I have leadership, I actually have a resistance to that. So this is based off of elemental damage. However, as you increase it, because I am undead, it reduces the damage by 200%, which is crazy ridiculous. And with it being increased by an exponential amount, that means I actually get healed for it. So in addition to not taking 100% of the damage, I get healed for 100% of that. So really awesome altogether to do that. Now, obviously I have capped, so the cap looks to be about 200. So you can't go past 200 for the future for you guys trying to game break the game. You can't go past 200, which is okay in my opinion. That is perfectly fine. But I just wanted to give you guys a guide on attribute points and kind of show you the more updated version of them and kind of showcase a little bit of them. I know they're very confusing, and I felt bad that I had an old video, and I know a lot of you guys were very upset about that, and I just wanted to give you guys what you wanted. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.